Hello, this is Tony Gianfrido with NETI105, and in this video we're going to talk about Netlab. So in the previous video we talked about Packet Tracer and how Packet Tracer gives us an emulated software environment to do our network topology configurations and set up networks and so forth. What Netlab is it's an actual physical real environment that you can log into. It's hosted by Ivy Tech. It has real routers, it has real switches, it has real computers that you can use to complete some lab exercises throughout the semester. What's happened here is I have registered your student account to Netlab, and you should be able to access it with the credentials that I send you. For some students, they've accessed Netlab previously for other classes, which means you already have a Netlab account. And if for whatever reason you don't remember your password, you just need to let me know and I can get your password updated and reset for you. So the important thing to know here is that all of these supported browsers down here, Internet Explorer is probably going to be your best bet. Internet Explorer is probably going to be your best bet for all assignments for NETI105. Mozilla Firefox is probably close second, and then Chrome far third. So it's not to say that it can't be done in Chrome or Firefox. It's just Internet Explorer allows you to run Java applications quite easily. Google Chrome does not natively. You have to handle it a slightly different way with Google Chrome with Java applications. And Mozilla Firefox is the same way. So Internet Explorer is what we all recommend as far as instructors for this course when doing lab assignments. So just keep that in mind if you run into technical issues. By all means, contact online learning support if you can't get something working, but one of the first things they're probably going to tell you is that if the particular software you're using requires Java, which in our case it does, you're going to have to use Internet Explorer for it. And not only that, you need to make sure your Java runtime environment is updated and installed properly as well. So using the credentials that I'm going to send you, you'll go to this website, netlab1.ivytech.edu, and then you're going to enter those credentials here on the top left corner of the screen. It's going to typically come up with this error that it can't detect which Java version is on your machine. And so if you hit continue, it's going to start this remote access test. As a student, you should never ever skip this test. Always do the remote access test when it asks you. And so what it's going to happen is you click on this button, it's going to download a Java file. And in this case I'm using Chrome, so because I'm not using Internet Explorer, I have to download it separately. And then once it's downloaded, I can open it and it runs independently outside of Chrome. And so I get presented with this little pop-up here. Do you want to run this application? I'm going to click Run. And it's doing its checks in the background, and it completed the connectivity test. So as long as you do that, as long as the Java program is able to run in the background, you will pass the connectivity test. My screen looks a little different because I'm an instructor, but the important thing you need to know about is this scheduler. So you're going to see this scheduler session as a student. And what you're going to do is you're going to click on this guy, and it's going to be a little bit different for you. I have to choose one of these. I'm going to select this for my own use. You're not going to see that screen. What you should be presented with is this screen. So when you click on Scheduler, you're going to see this screen. Now each one of these columns is a different pod. And as you can see, there's pod 1, pod 3, pod 4, pod 5, pod 6, pod 7, and so forth. And you can even keep scrolling all the way up to here. Don't use these Red Hat sysadmin pods. That is not for our use. Our use are these multi-purpose academy pods. And so what you can do is, if you know at 7 o'clock you'll be available to do your work, you just click down here on the time frame and select a pod that's available. Right now there's nobody using these, so what you would typically see here are reservations of other students doing their work. Because there are no other students doing their work, there are no reservations here. And so if you know at 7 o'clock you're able to work, you click on the 7 o'clock section and make your reservation for that pod. Or if you're ready to use it right now, you just click right underneath the red arrow or the red line, and then you select how long you need it for. So I think the max is up to 4 hours. So my start time is today, and right now I'm going to reserve this pod today through today at 8:30, and it calculates for me. It's almost 4 hours. And I'm going to restore configs from last reservation, if any. This is helpful if, say for instance, you reserve a pod for an hour because you only have an hour to work, but you don't get your work done. What you can do is you can restore your configurations from your last reservation and continue working on a different reservation. So like say from 1 to 2 I was able to work but I didn't get done. I can go back from 5 to 7, make a new reservation, and restore my configurations from my 1 to 2 p.m. session. So I'm just going to leave that as is, and then I'm going to hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to make a reservation for you. And you can kind of see it back here. It made a reservation for me for that 4-hour time frame. And then I could just click I'm done. Now because I selected a reservation time that was immediate, the lab reservations show up on like your main homepage dashboard. And so if you're ready to go into the pod to access your Netlab, you can click this button to enter the lab. And what it's doing now is it's preparing the pod, which has all of the routers and switches and computers that's needed for the lab, and it's preparing it for your lab assignments. And so this will take a minute or two, and what's going to happen here is when you're assigned a lab assignment to complete, there's going to be an identifier, like a unique number. So it's going to be like lab 1.1.2.4 that you have to complete. Well, once the pod gets finished loading, we can select lab 1.1.2.4 from the list, and it will set the pod up so that we can complete that lab assignment for us. So this is what the pod looks like in, from a logical topology standpoint. These are just routers and switches in a server rack at Ivy Tech. But we don't need to worry about this. What we need to worry about is which one we want to load. And I think I selected the wrong one. Let me back out of here actually. I think I selected the wrong type of reservation. I think I need to do a different type of reservation. So we'll schedule instructor-led time. Yes, okay. So when you click on the scheduler, you're going to click on your class, and it should be NETI105 Gianfrido Spring 2019. And then you make your reservation. So I think it will let me do 2 at once because I'm an instructor. And now I'm going to access my pod. Sorry, I had selected the wrong type. I had selected one for instructor use only, and so there wasn't any like student lab assignments associated to it. So again, you're not going to see that because I'm a teacher. I have extra screens, but it will give you the list of classes in NetLab that you're supposed to select from, and you just select the NETI105 Spring 2019 course, and it'll load the pod up with all the labs that you need. So that's what's happening here, and it'll take a few minutes, so give it a second. Oh, so while we're waiting on that to load up, a couple things. Anything you do in the pod environment in NetLab is recorded. So you know how in Packet Tracer I needed you to save the PKA file with all your work and then submit it to me, in addition to the lab worksheet. Well, for NetLab assignments, the only thing you need to turn in on Net Academy is the completed lab PDF. What I'm able to do is I can go into NetLab and see your recorded session and see all the commands you typed in. I can see all the output that you've seen, and then I can see all the configurations that you've put in to verify that you did what you were supposed to do on the lab. So just keep that in mind. Everything is recorded in here. And now that the pod is loaded, there's this exercise tab on the far right. Click on the exercise tab, and this will give you a list of all the lab assignments that we're supposed to do this semester. Actually, I don't think some of these we may not be doing, so don't just get ahead of yourself and just do them all at once. Only do what's called out in the module section on Net Academy. So for instance, I think in week 1 or 2, you're going to get a NetLab assignment 2.3.3.3 to build a simple network. And so you're going to highlight that network if that's the lab that you want to do. And then you're going to hit change exercise. And it's going to load up the pod with this exercise. Lab exercise has been changed. Would you like to load them into the lab devices? Yes. So if you ever get a prompt to load configuration into the lab devices, just click yes. This little status window pops up, but we can close out of that. And here is the lab topology for this assignment. And this is actually the lab worksheet that comes with it. Keep in mind the lab PDF that's on here may not match the one that you download from Net Academy. So as a rule of thumb, only ever use the lab sheet from Net Academy when you're completing your NetLab assignment. And what's great about this is in the assignment it's going to tell you to do things like go to PCA and configure it, go to switch 1 and configure it with these settings, and this is how you configure it. All you need to do is just click on the respective device to access it. So for instance, if I want to configure PCA or access PCA, I just click on it. And it runs Java. So I have to download the Java file. I run the application. And it loads up with a working physical workstation that I can access. It's PCA. So the Java that loads up allows me to access PCA in the pod. And I can access everything on this machine just like a normal Windows computer. And the lab PDF sheet, the worksheet, is going to give you very specific instructions on what to do. So it's going to say, for instance, log into PCA, open up Network and Connection Sharing Center, go to Change Adapter Settings, right-click on your local area connection, click on Properties, go to Internet Protocol version 4, go to Properties, it's going to give you step-by-step instructions like that on the lab PDF. So this is just an example of what a PC looks like. If we click on a switch, we keep the file, we download the file, we run the file. This is a Java file. It's going to load up with a screen that looks like this. And it may take a minute if the switch is still booting up. And if you ever see this Netlab system process has control of the terminal, that means that it's still trying to initialize and load the configurations into the switch. So this could take a while. You just keep the terminal going. You wait till it finishes, and you're good. Now, if for whatever reason, like in this case, it never finishes, like it typically doesn't take very long to load the configurations, but if for whatever reason it hangs or it keeps trying to load something, or if you have any problems here, the best place is the help desk. So contact the Ivy Tech help desk, let them know you're in Netlab, let them know which pod you have a reservation on, and then tell them the problem you're experiencing, and that'll narrow it down for them enough where they can go in and check on everything, make sure it's supposed to be what it is. Now, the very unfortunate problem that happens with this, with Netlab, is when you schedule a reservation, you can't schedule another reservation as a student for another 4 hours. So if I schedule a reservation from 1 to 2, I can't schedule another reservation until 6 o'clock. And the reason for that is because this pod environment is a shared working environment with other students. And so it prevents students from essentially taking over a whole pod for a whole day where other students need to get their work done. And that's pretty much it. So as you can see here, you can see the Netlab process is running. It's still doing some configurations on the switch in the background. And looks like, yeah, it's still doing its thing. So if you have any problems or if you're not able to do what you need to do, let me know, and then contact the help desk, and they should be able to fix it for you. But this just kind of gives you an example of how to access any of the devices in your lab topology when you load it into Netlab. When you're done with the reservation, click on the We're Done button, and that will end your reservation right there, and it'll free it up for anyone else who might be able to schedule it during the time frame that you have left over. And that's pretty much it. Like I said earlier, the only document that comes with this is the lab worksheet. It's a PDF worksheet that you're going to download from Net Academy in the modules section. And that's it. So if you have any questions about this, let me know, and good luck.